because it's like
I need you, I need you, I need you, yeah. I need you, I need you, yeah, yeah. I need you, I need you, I need you, yeah. I need you, I need you, I need you, yeah. I need you, I need you, yeah, yeah. I need you, 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 yeah, yeah. I need you, I need you, I need you.
I am not in love with this life. I'm not in love with this pain. I'm not in love with my efforts. I am not in love with my gains. I've been a slave to my portion, Lord. I built the God in my likeness. In hindsight, I was reckless. A wicked heart, I was trifling. A wicked heart that's enticing. A graveyard in my brave heart. 49% how we praise God. With the other 51, we slayed God and crucified him afresh. Yet expect to see God bless. And we expect to trigger his mercy in spite of what we reject. And expect to invoke his favor as I seem fit. Tailor-made for destruction, loving the stench of death. I drink this, so I built my kingdom away from his glory and away from his grace. But away from a broken man, I would never turn his face. So I taste the Lord and attest that he is good. About it breeze revelation, absolute surrender all that I could. So I surrender all of my shame, surrender all of my life. He opened the windows of heaven and I want to spin it all on my wife. Right.
I've been struggling for so long. Well, no longer do it on my own. No, no. I've been struggling for so long. No. I can no longer do it on my own. No, no. I need you, I need you, I need you, yeah. I need you, I need you, yeah, yeah. I need you, I need you, I need you, yeah. I need you, I need you, I need you, yeah. I need you, I need you, yeah, yeah. I need you, 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 I need you.
an early memory I have is she was telling me, now David, you just have to open your heart to Jesus. Just open your heart and let him come into your heart.
Yeah.
You know, because she was trying to explain it to me. And I remember going like this. I'm like, Grandma, I can't open my chest. It got bad because that's where it really, the enemy was like, started using that. Because I had that VHS tape and like, we had magazines and stuff. And so me and the kids from the neighborhood, we would have magazines. We'd go hide them in the woods and we'd go, and I would steal the magazines and take them home. And I was so like focused in and locked in on like wanting to be this identity of, oh no, now this is what I am. I am a Hare Krishna. Like I am enlightened. My goal is enlightenment. I want to be a guru. And this was my goal because it went hand in hand with my music, with the weed, with the, I was started taking drugs and mushrooms and acid and stuff at the time.
So now we're recording. So I guess we got to do all that over again, huh? Well, I think it'd be easier and better this way. Anyway, so before I stupidly didn't hit record before. Well, we're back with another episode, another series, another installment of Absolute Surrender. We come to reach the people, touch the people, and move the people in the kingdom way. And we are doing absolute surrender in order to, give people the blueprint, give brothers and sisters the blueprint of how we got through, how we're getting through, how we're going to get through this crazy world of absolute surrender. Your birth date, your death date, and the dash in the middle, that's absolute surrender. That's the process. It's not a destination. It's a journey. It's a walk. It's a trip. You know what I'm saying? It's a battle. So we're here giving of ourselves, telling all our little dirty, ugly secrets, and you know what I'm saying? Even some of the things that we've conquered or been victorious over, and the things we still struggle with, the things that we are still battling with day to day. So, transparency is a thing, is the move. I believe that it blesses people and it helps other people have the conversation. So we are continuing. This is the next installment of Absolute Surrender, featuring my brother Elementary Dave. What's up, Dave? Again.
What's up?
Take two. Yeah, man. So we're gonna walk through, you know what I'm saying, whatever Dave is prepared to share, whatever he feels that will bless the people. You know, it's structured as in however far we want to go back in our history, wherever we want to start, whether it's childhood, we want to, you know what I'm saying, dig into the origins, the you know, our villain origin story, our redemption story, you know, and everything in between, so that we can, you know, maybe help somebody else get to where we're going and you know, make it through. So what up, Dave?
What up? What up, man? What a blessing to be here. Thank you so much, dude.
Amen. Thank you for coming
here. Yeah, man. Just want to say I'm grateful for our friendship.
Amen.
Grateful for what you're doing here in the community in Cincinnati, Ohio, and just for the kingdom and this platform, Absolute Surrender. It's just really a blessing to be a part of it, and it's a blessing to have brothers like you here locally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not only are you a friend to me, a dear friend, you've always been, but now we're kingdom brothers, and so we can make traction for the kingdom of heaven here, and do it with the technology that we've been blessed with, right?
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. So, where does Elementary begin? Do you come from a Christian family? What's the earliest memories of God that you can reach back into?
Yeah, amen. So I think it's, with my story, it's important to start at the beginning, because my story is one of a classic prodigal son. Because I always believed in God. There was never a time when I questioned that there was a creator. I was never an atheist. So I grew up in Mount Healthy, Ohio, in a place called Seven Hills.
Okay.
I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Okay, yeah. Got a lot of family out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, where the Captain D's is.
Yeah.
Turning right there.
Yeah.
So I was, my earliest memories is
I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah. Grew up in Seven Hills. I was the only white kid in the entire
I know. I know. I'm like, I didn't know. Okay.
So I was blessed to be able to grow up in a cultured environment, which has always been crucial to the person that I am.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends, obviously, in the neighborhood who were Black and Latino, and I got beat up a few times, which was humbling as a kid. And, you know, got my dog stolen out of my backyard several times. And I remember, you know, there was drug dealers literally right there on the corner, right at the corner closest to my house. And my mom would always tell me, you know, you can go this far, but don't go, you know, past that corner.
Okay, I know where you at. Okay, yeah. Seven Hills. Yeah, that's the ghetto now.
Yes.
It's the full-blown ghetto now.
It was the full-blown ghetto when I lived there.
It's the super ghetto now, though.
So the cool part about living there was my grandma and grandpa, they lived right around the corner from us. So my mom and my dad worked full-time jobs, and they would drop me off while they would go to work at my grandma and grandpa's. And my grandma was a devout Christian woman, woman of God, praying woman, musician. She played piano. So those early memories I have of going over there, and she would tell me about Jesus. She would play the piano and play hymns and stuff and sing hymns on the piano. And an early memory I have is she was telling me, now, David, you just have to open your heart to Jesus. Just open your heart and let him come into your heart. Yeah. You know, because she was trying to explain it to me. And I remember going like this. I'm like, Grandma, I can't open my chest to get to my heart, you know? And I just think that's so funny, because it reminds me of like how Jesus said, you know, you need to come to him as a little child. you know, with childlike faith, because I really did love Jesus. I didn't really understand the gospel or the atonement, but I did love Jesus, and I had a love for God. And I went to a Christian school for kindergarten and went to kinder care. And, you know, this was right around, we were getting ready to move to Fairfield, which is where I spent the majority of my time. This was right when I was about to go into first grade.
Okay.
And I was still going to Mammy's house every day. Mammy is who my grandma.
Okay.
She attended Fairfield West Baptist Church. So I was in the Awanas. You remember the Awanas Club? So that was kind of like a Boy Scouts club for Christian kids who were in church. So I had my vest and all my little badges, you know. You'd like get for like memorizing Bible verses and stuff. You'd get badges. And so, you know how you have like flashbacks of just memories from when you're real young. You don't remember like the full thing, but you have these little flashes.
They call them impact moments.
Yeah, impact moments. I have an impact moment that stuck with me my whole life. And I believe it was instrumental in leading me to Christ. And it was an impact moment of being inside the church.
Okay.
And feeling safe and warm and happy and content. And just like this like fresh, clean, pure feeling that I'd never had anywhere else. But it was like, I still have that memory in my mind of remembering just what it felt like to be in church as a kid.
So at this time, what kind of kid would you say you are? What's your temperament?
I was a good kid at that point in time. I mean, I was well behaved. I listened to my parents. I think I was pretty well behaved, and I think I attribute that to being with my grandma every day.
Yeah,
you know, even though my parents were working, you know, they were a big part of my life, but my grandma and grandpa were almost. I would almost consider them like my parents when I was a kid because they were more instrumental.
Did you have young parents, or were they? Because my mom had me when she was 16.
No,
they weren't.
They weren't young. I think they were probably early 30s.
Okay. Yeah.
So I remember, you know, one night I was in my bedroom, and I still kind of have a flash of this memory. I got down on my knees. Because I had been talking with my grandma. She's talking about, you know, inviting Jesus in your heart. And I remember I got down on my knees and I was praying before I went to bed. And I said, you know, Jesus, like, come into my heart and save me. I remember that. And I told my grandma, and my grandma still remembers it to this day. Because I go visit her at the retirement home and we talk about it. And
So she was there in the room with you?
She wasn't in the room, but I told her the next day.
Okay.
I said, Grandma, last night I told Jesus I wanted him to come in my heart and save me. And she was so happy. She wanted me to follow up in baptism and all that. Yeah. And so when I was 6 years old, I got baptized at Fairfield West Baptist Church. Yeah. And God is funny sometimes because I didn't actually know, and this is so crazy, that my wife was actually going to that church at the same time, bro. Wow. And this is way before I even knew her. Yeah. And my grandma taught classes at Fairfield West Baptist too. So crazy how God is, he orchestrates things like that, you know, like just
it's so many,
incredible.
It's so many different stories within stories of life, and that's one of the things. Like, I can't wait to get to glory to see all of the layers. Like, I was having a conversation with somebody a couple years ago. I was like, man, you ever think about the stuff that God stopped, like the stuff that never even
right.
And they was kind of like scared, and they was like, nah, I don't want to know. I'm like, nah, I want to know. It's like, why would you want to know that? I said, I want to know because it'll give me even more appreciation for God. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I have a conscious understanding and memory of some stuff that God saved me. I seen death. I seen when he did this and I was there. Yeah. But what about the stuff I didn't see? You know what I'm saying? The stuff he blocked, but go ahead.
Yeah. I think that's a good sentiment, because it's like we look at God's providence sometimes, and you don't see God's providence when you're going through a trial or you're going through a testing. You're just so focused on the issue at hand, and you're not really thinking like, man, how can God use what I'm going through right now? Until the storm passes, you know, and then when you're on the other side of the storm, you look back and you're like, God, I see what you were doing in that. You did this and this and this to save me from this, this, and this, and keep me from this person, you know, cause like Romans 8:28, he's working all things for good. Not all things are good, but he's working them for good. So I just love God's providence, man. I love seeing it in my life, and I notice it more.
It makes you fall in love with him. It's like, when you when you look at what he does and what he do, and he reveals things to you, it's like, and then when you look at maybe the animal that you were, and he still loved you.
Yeah.
How wicked you were, how selfish you were. It's like, it can't do nothing but make you fall. It's like, oh my God, it melts you. Like, when I think about, those are the moments and the things that I think about that really just destroys me. Like, I'm not a crier.
Right.
Like, but when I cry, I'm thinking about the goodness of God. Amen. I'm thinking about him saving us. I'm thinking about him protecting him. Still, like, he don't have an attitude how we have. Like, me and you as humans could get into it and fall out, and I could violate you, and I could say and do all of the worst things, and it could turn your heart against me.
Yeah.
I can't turn his heart against me. I could just reject him until he have to quarantine me and put me somewhere. But his heart will never be against me. He'll never hate me.
Right.
Crazy.
Amen. Yeah, so around that time, I got baptized. This is probably when I was about 9 years old. Things were getting really rough between my mom and my dad. My dad was an alcoholic, and he'd come home after work drunk a lot. And, you know, he never was abusive or anything like that. But I have memories of him coming home and, you know, just being drunk and me not understanding, and just a lot of chaos and stuff in the later years there. And I have memories. I was in karate when I was a kid, and I remember my dad picking me up from karate practice, being drunk and just being so scared, you know, while he was driving me. And you know, I'd say, like,
but how old was that?
Like when I was about 9, 10 years old, I'd be like,
so you know about drunk driving.
Yeah. And like I could tell when he was drunk. Yeah. You know, he had like that slurring in his speech, which he didn't notice. Yeah. So he would say, I would confront him about it, like, Dad, like, I can tell that you're drunk. Like, by the way you're talking, he'd be like, I'm not drunk. You know.
So what kind of drunk was he? Because my stepdad was an angry drunk, a violent drunk.
No, my dad was a happy drunk.
Yeah. Okay.
But still, it still scared me.
Yeah, and it'll still wreck your life, because although you're not abusive or, you know, wilding out, it still tanks the other things, your productivity and all that other stuff. So
yeah. So, you know, I have that, and then even when I was young, I began to develop a feeling that I was different from everyone else. I never really felt like I fit in. I didn't fit in one particular group. I was in football, so I hung out a lot with the football kids and the jocks. But I was also like a nerd, so I hung out with like the gamers and the kids that were playing Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. Yeah. And I was a writer too, so I would write my own stories and write my own video games and my own Dungeons and Dragons adventures. I was so creative as a kid. I mean, like,
did you draw?
I drew. I did everything. Yeah. Like when I was not working in school, when I was done with my work, I was like working on a world or writing a book or something. I mean, I was just always so creative, and but never really fit in with the group. So I remember this is around, and this is probably in between when I was 9 or 12 years old. I heard my first experience with pornography, and I was walking past my mom and dad's room, and I remember looking in and seeing naked people on the computer screen. And I had this really just like ominous, like dark feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I can still remember that feeling when I first saw
like
it.
At that,
I felt like this ominous dark energy. And I knew it was bad, but I didn't know that like my dad was also struggling with a pornography addiction at that time. And that's something that I dealt with in my life. So when I was 11, my mom and dad separated, and I remember I would go over to my dad's apartment in Coleraine on the weekends, and we had some good times together at his apartment. You know, he was really trying to get sober during that time. And I would go to AA meetings with him, and every weekend, and we had a great time. You know, I had some good memories with my dad going to his apartment there. And
how do you think that because for a kid being exposed to the AA crowd and the therapy and those personalities and stories, how do you think that impacted you, or you know, what is it something, because I can remember a time when me and my mother and my brothers and sisters, we had to go to a shelter because my stepdad was wilding out. He had, you know, he was smoking crack and he was drinking, and he had got violent. So in order to get housing, we had to go to a shelter. So for about a month or two, maybe not even that, maybe a month or so. And I can remember things like I learned how to juggle there. It was the first time my mother told me not to entertain women who already had children, because it was some younger chick there. She was grown, and she had kids, but I was maybe 12. She was probably early 20s. My mama could tell that she was kind of flirty, and she was like, and she said, and this is a woman who has 7 kids. I have my own father. My brother Brittany has his own father, and then my last 5 brothers and sisters are all by my stepdad. So this is somebody who had, you know, kids by multiple different dudes, telling me, and which is unfortunate, because I've had this conversation with women and who had kids with a whole bunch of different guys, and they won't tell their sons to not do that. Like, nah, my mother said, you want to start your family fresh, you don't do it how we do it. And that's the first time that she put that in me. So I can remember certain things from that maybe that environment sparked, and you know, situations that made my mama, and that was a situation that made my mama give me that. And you know what I'm saying? So is it anything that you remember from that era and that time that you kind of maybe still remember, something that you brought with you, another impact moment from, you know what I'm saying, going with dad there, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it was what I hold on to from going to those AA meetings every weekend, you know, with him, is just how important recovery is for people, you know, because I'm not huge on the AA kind of 12-step recovery stuff. I'm more into the Christ, you know, I'll make you whole instead type of recovery. But I do think that recovery is very important, no matter what kind it is. And I the whole idea of testimonies, I knew what a testimony was before I even knew what what we're doing right now as a testimony, because every weekend I would go there and hear people give their testimonies. So I think what was cool about it is it really exposed me to the wickedness of alcoholism and what that can do to people's lives at a young age. So when I got into the world, when I was in college and stuff, like, I knew what alcoholism could do. I wasn't blind to it. I had heard story after story of how it ruined people's lives. So I think that's kind of what I took from it. And then also breathing in a lot of cigarette smoke.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, I'll never forget the weekend my dad, you know, he had brought me over, and then my mom and dad were just separated at that time, but he brought me in and sat me down on the bed, and he said, you know, Dave, like, me and mom are getting a divorce. And immediately I thought that it had something to do with me.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what it is about that, why kids feel that way. But I knew I didn't do anything personally, but I'm like, Dad, is this because of me? Did I do something?
Yeah.
And
we're trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, I blamed myself for it.
Yeah.
I thought that it was something that I did.
Yeah.
And I tried to not let it affect me, because I was pretty resilient as a kid, but it did.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like pushed those feelings down inside.
Yeah.
And I remember too at that time, like I was into a lot of dark stuff when I was a kid. I was into scary movies. I was into demons. Anything that was about like horror movies and gore and scary stuff.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. And that's what bonded me and my dad, was the crazy thing. And my dad's a Christian, you know, I mean, my dad's a great guy. We hang out all the time now and we talk Bible stuff.
Yeah.
I love my dad, but we bonded on scary movies. Like I would go over there every weekend and we would just watch gory, scary movies. I mean, and I was desensitized.
Yeah.
At a very young age, I was desensitized to the demonic.
So what was the conversation around the supernatural early on in life? Was it any, because I mean, the Bible and faith is supernatural, is inherently supernatural, but I'm talking about a focused conversation on the supernatural, demons, spirits, devils, dreams, astrology, or any of that.
Nothing.
Okay.
I never had one conversation about that with my dad, my mom, my grandma, even my grandma. And I think, I love my grandma too, but I think one of the things that, like, because I grew up obviously in a Baptist church, but I think one thing that like certain denominations lack, and I don't even know if it's a denominational thing. I just think it's certain Christians is they don't take spiritual warfare seriously.
Yeah.
And they don't teach their kids about it.
Yeah.
You know, and so kids at a young age have no understanding that, like, when you're watching movies about gory stuff or demons or anything like that, that this is something real.
Yeah.
When I watched it, it was just, this is just fantasy.
Yeah.
This is not real. This is just entertainment. That's all it was to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I was so desensitized to it, because I'm like, I was never like, I was a super nice kid. I was loving, got good grades. I never got no fights or nothing.
Yeah.
So it was like the scary stuff and the demonic stuff was, to me, like I said, I was desensitized. I didn't know. I can see now how it affected me.
Yeah.
Filling my eyes with that, my eye gates and my ear gates with all that negativity. But at the time, it didn't. I don't know.
So did you have any point of reference, like that witches or Satanism or any of that was real?
No. Nope.
Okay.
Not at all.
Wow. Okay.
Not even in the slightest bit, bro. So yeah, I was pretty much obsessed with that. Like I wasn't goth or anything, and I didn't portray that kind of image. I was just a sports kid. You know, I was just a football player and just regular old kid, played basketball every day, hung out, went creeking, had plenty of friends. I was outgoing. Didn't listen to like heavy metal or anything, but like everybody knew me as like the horror movie kid. Like if you had questions about a horror movie or and I had like the magazines, you know, the gore magazines, the horror.
For real?
Yeah, and I knew everything about like all the different horror. Like I was literally like a horror movie aficionado.
So it was the movies. It was the magic of the making the movie. And okay. It wasn't the maybe this is real, or
no,
it was the making of like
like the makeup and stuff like that. Like I would, you know, watch documentaries on how they do the horror movie makeup and all that stuff. It was just interesting to me. So anyway, but at the time, like a verse that I think about now, Matthew 6:22, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. And if the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Like I said, Rico, I didn't know, because the enemy is stealthily, and I didn't know what that was doing, putting all that darkness into me at that time. But I truly believe that it was opening a doorway for the enemy, because God had already, the Bible says God foreknew what the plans that he had for us, right? So of course the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He knew the plans, right? Like he's like, how can I get this kid, right? So he's getting me through that. And I remember at this time, I came upon my first VHS of a porn movie. And this was probably when I was like 11 years old.
So this is after the computer screen.
Yes, this is about 2 years afterwards.
Okay. So the computer screen to the VHS, what type of, I don't know, interaction had you had with porn or anything, or it was just that moment to
nothing at that time.
Okay.
So nothing. Until this VHS came into my life.
Okay.
And so I believe this is kind of where a downward spiral started to happen in my life, when darkness truly started to take hold of me. Because before that, like I said, I was a model kid, dude, straight A's, just the sweetest little boy, man. And I'm not trying to, that's just who I was. You can ask all my family. Yeah. But, and I understand that, like, some people don't have problems with porn. You know, they say they can use it in moderation and blah, 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 and this and that. And you hear
if you consume, you have a problem with porn. Right. Yeah. Flat out. Yeah. You got any brothers and sisters?
I have a sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's younger, older?
Older.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And so once I had that movie, I feel like the enemy had his hooks in me, and he was pretty aggressive with his tactics in that, because I would, after the first time watching it, I would go back to it, because there was that feeling, right? Yeah. There's the feeling, the dopamine or whatever feeling scientifically that happened in your brain. When you connect with that, I would go back to it, and I hid it in my room, and I would always, whenever I had the opportunity, I would go, you know, and watch it. And it started, you know, scientifically creating those neural pathways in my brain.
And that heat, that fire that comes up, that you feel of that fleshy, evil desire, that's addictive.
Yeah.
That feeling is, even looking back now, how wicked it is, that, because it's really what we're experiencing is the supernatural. We don't know that. So it's just like, remember that was something stupid we used to do when we was little, like breathe in, I don't know how many times, and then hold your breath, and then I'll do this. And
yes, I remember. Out. Yeah, I did that.
Right?
Bro. Yeah.
So stuff, boys.
I did all that crap.
Stuff like that is a rush playing with life, our life force. Yeah. And that's all that is. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, it was around early teenage years, 13 to 15. And football was huge in my life. I played from first grade all the way through high school. Played both ways, defensive end, offensive tight end. I was really good, and I was first string. So football was my life, man. Yeah. And I was never interested in guitar, but like I remember my dad had taught me a couple chords, and
so your dad played.
Yeah, my dad played. That was his life.
Okay.
Everywhere he went, he was like Jimi Hendrix, dude. Okay. Everywhere he went, he had his guitar with him. And people would be like, Dave,
he still play?
Yeah, he still plays, but he chopped off 3 of his fingers.
Oh, so it's gonna be kind of hard.
So he plays dobro now.
What's that?
It's a lap steel. Thing.
Okay.
So he can put the thing on his finger and slide it.
Yeah. Dope.
So
you need to get him in some sets with you or something.
Yeah, we jam when I go over his house. Yeah. You know, we always jam. Yeah. So, but yeah, he taught me some chords, and then I remember he taught me my first song, which was Tequila Sunrise by the Eagles.
Okay.
And he said, you know, if you can learn these 3 chords in this song, you can learn how to play anything. So that's when I started getting into guitar because I started liking girls at that time.
And how old is this?
Probably about 15 years old, 14, 15. And I remember I asked Dad, hey, will you buy me my first, electric guitar and amp? And I remember at that time when I got my guitar and my amp, it was like my desire from football being the main thing shifted to guitar. Yeah. And I would lock myself in my room, dude. And I'm not lying, 6 to 8 hours a day. I'd come home from school and it was a wrap. Door in the room, CD in, and tablature, all that. And I played, and I got to the point where God gifted me with the ability to learn by ear. So I don't know how to read music or anything like that, but he gifted me with the ability to be able to hear a song and play that just by ear. So that's what I would do. And I would, had Bush and Everclear and, Stone Temple Pilots and all these old 90s rock bands at Creed and all that. So I would listen to them and memorize it. And I got really, really good at guitar. And this was right around the time when the internet was starting to get more popular. So you had like AOL chat rooms and stuff popping and porn images like you could get through email and stuff like that.
See, I didn't know that. I the whole AOL, I didn't start for real using the internet to World Star Hip Hop time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I would use it for, stuff that I had to use it for.
Dang.
Stuff that you just couldn't get around using. Yeah. But the whole chat rooms, and I missed that whole thing. Ooh. Yeah. The whole Black Planet and all the chat rooms. I was in there a little bit, but but yeah, I mean, it was basically social media for back then.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even hip to all of that, to the pornography and all of that being.
It got bad because that's where it really, the enemy was started using that. Cause I had that VHS tape and we had magazines and stuff. And so me and the kids from the neighborhood, we would have magazines. We'd go hide them in the woods and then we'd go, and I would steal the magazines and take them home. So I had, I started collecting. I had a little collection and stuff at home. But then, when the internet came around and AOL and all that, every day, this was a thing every day after school, instead of playing guitar or playing football, it was now we'd go over to my buddy's house, connect to the internet, and see how many porn images we could get. It was just that porn took a hold of my life at a very young age. Well, I'm talking 15, 16 years old. And, at that time, that's when I had my first girlfriend. We were together for 5 years, super toxic relationship, lots of cheating on both sides. I mean, my porn use was so bad at that point because the internet was getting to the point where that it was streaming now. You could stream porn instead of getting the images of it. So it was just every day porn use out of control. And that was terrible for a relationship, because I was trying to have a real relationship with this girl. This was I'm 17 years old at this point. And, this is when I first started smoking weed. I had started smoking cigarettes and got into weed and absolutely loved it because I was playing music, right? And so when I would smoke, we would just play guitar.
Go hand in hand.
Hours and hours and hours. And, I was getting into, hippie stuff, hippie jam band. So I was really into Grateful Dead and Fish and stuff like that. And around 17, I started my first band called 4 Ohms. And the band, we were just a jam band. We would do these songs. I don't know if you've heard any Grateful Dead or Fish or anything, but the songs can go on for 15, 20 minutes. And it's just, you just jam.
It's basically a jam session.
There's just a little bit of lyrics and then just a
it's
big
kind of
jam.
It's kind of like the gospel songs now, gospel CDs and albums throughout the years. They've been a song and then they go to the next. Now, basically, we're getting worship sessions where Israel Newbury to give you a 8-minute song, and then the next song will be 6 minutes, and then they'll have a 12-minute song, and then they'll do a 3-minute break, and
Yeah, so that was big, and then so this is right around the time when the different religions and stuff started entering my life, and spirituality, I would say, even though there's only one true spirituality we know, but started to get an interest. So obviously, but the name of my first band was Four Ohms. And so the Om came from the Om, right? That you do the Sanskrit meditation Om. And that was because the guitar player in my band at that time, he was into Buddhism and Hinduism too. He had a friend who was a Hare Krishna Hindu. And so I remember going to his house, like we would practice, and I would go to his house after practice to hang out. We would go in his basement, and we would smoke and jam and write music and stuff. And I would see these books in his room. I'm like, dude, what's this book? Like, what's Siddhartha and what's this Zen Buddhism? Like, tell me about this. And so he would start to tell me about it, and like, he gave me a book called Be Here Now by Ram Dass, which was really, really instrumental, like back in the day, in getting me into Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and Hare Krishna Hinduism. And
so this is age about what?
This is about 18 years old.
So 18 and grandma, church, Boy Scout church, type of situation. Where is God and church and prayer and all of this during the horror flicks, the porn, the football? Where is
non-existent?
Okay.
Didn't go to church.
Okay.
So I stopped going to church after, like, once we moved to Fairfield, and I didn't
away from grandma.
Yeah, when I wasn't with grandma anymore, church was nothing. My parents didn't go.
Right.
My dad and my mom were both Christian.
Right.
But they just didn't go to church because they were just, I mean, not that it's a good excuse, but they worked all the time. My dad was an alcoholic. They were going through a divorce. So they just weren't dedicated, I guess, to go to church. But that was detrimental to me, because
now you naked.
Yeah. Without grandma there, So anyway, like, obviously Buddhism, it teaches the theory of nirvana, right? And the Eightfold Path and all these different things, and focuses heavily on meditation. So I read a book called Siddhartha, which is actually the story of Buddha's name was Siddhartha Buddha.
Didn't know that.
So the Siddhartha book was kind of my entry into Zen Buddhism. And really got into that. And
now you say Zen Buddhism. Is there different types of Buddhism?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's different types.
Okay.
So there's Mahayana Buddhism, which is kind of like folk Buddhism, which is popular in certain areas. And then you have, I forget what the name of it is, but more of the straight up Buddhism, which is exactly what Buddha taught, which is more of an atheistic religion.
Right.
And then Zen Buddhism was kind of like an offshoot of Mahayana Buddhism, which was taken into America and made popular in the 70s and stuff with hippies. And so that's kind of what I got into at the time.
Okay.
And
kind of a universal adding different to kind of make it a different type of Buddhism.
Yeah, exactly.
Like kind pieces of Buddhism, mainly, and then some other stuff to make it Zen Buddhism.
Yeah, build your own Buddhism, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Because like most people that you see in the U.S., because Buddhism is pretty popular religion, but most people you see in the U.S. are practicing Zen Buddhism.
Okay,
if they are Buddhist,
is it kind of like a commercialized?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, for sure.
Okay, it's like the yoga that everybody practices, but they detach it from all of the Hinduism. Supernatural.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so at that time too, I got into Hinduism because I was in Buddhism already, and I started learning about the Om. So in my
I never knew that all this time. I never knew that what that was. Okay, yeah.
So you can see I got it right there. So that's the Om right there, the Sanskrit Om. And then so my guitar players, friend, his roommate was like I said, a Hare Krishna Hindu, and followed the teachings of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And so at its core belief
That sounds like a
system-
whole bunch of so many different things, so many different mediums that you're getting your food from.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was totally different. It was very intriguing for me coming from a Christian background.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the Hare Krishna belief system focuses on the Bhagavad Gita, right? So like Hinduism itself has the Vedas, which are like their holy texts. And then they have some other texts, but they have within those texts is a book called the Bhagavad Gita, which is famous in Hare Krishna Hinduism. And that was what was popular with the Beatles. Like, and you have to understand, like with Zen Buddhism and Hare Krishna Hinduism, these were the Americanized forms of these religions that were brought and made popular by the hippies in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And so obviously I had the copy of the Bhagavad Gita and I started reading it like crazy. And I was so like focused in and locked in on like wanting to be this identity of, oh no, now this is what I am. I am a Hare Krishna. Like I am enlightened. My goal is enlightenment. I want to be a guru. And this was my goal because it went hand in hand with my music, with the weed, with the, I was started taking drugs and mushrooms and acid and stuff at the time.
So let me ask you this. Coming up, all the way up to this point, did grandma, mom, dad, anybody use this type of language towards you? You are, Dave, you are this. You are this. You were born to be this. God says you're this. This is basically speaking into your identity.
Yeah, never.
Okay.
Never. And that plays a big part in my story too, because you can see right now I was searching for an identity.
Exactly.
This is kind of the theme of my testimony, that throughout my whole life, like I said, I never felt like I fit in with anybody.
Yeah.
So I would hop on these different trains of this is my identity now.
Yeah.
And every part of me went into building myself into that identity, right?
And the reason why I asked that, the reason why that stuck out to me is because you go from the Zen Buddhism to Hinduism and then what was the third one? It was like a third shift.
Oh, I haven't got to it yet.
But all of these different things are like, it wasn't like, okay, I'm Islam and that's what I'm doing. It was, I'm Islam, I'm this, I'm this. I'm to build up, I'm going to take all of this to,
So, Hinduism, like I remember, so I would carry around, and this was about like I really wanted my identity. I think it was more of like also too like an ego thing, because I would walk around in school and I had my long hair, I had my Grateful Dead shirt on, I had like the beads, the Hindu beads, and I would carry around my copy of the Bhagavad Gita like it was like the Bible, like so people could see me with it and be like I wanted them.
I just pictured you looking like what's dude off of the Kung Fu, like, just something just different.
Yeah.
If he walked if he was a teenager and walked into high school with his whatever, just so different, so exclusive. It's like, this is who I am. It's like, who's this guy with this book and these beads and his hair? Like,
that's who I wanted. I wanted to always be original. I always was.
Yeah.
Even before I started doing all the religious stuff, like I was always original. I was always that dude that stuck out and had these original different stuff.
Yeah.
And so anyway, with Krishna consciousness, they believe you have what with sin, you have to in order to clear your sin, right? That you as part of your karmic debt, you have to chant the Hare Krishna chant 108 times a day with your prayer beads.
How long is this chant?
It's just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
You gotta say it 108 times.
So, yeah, and and with the chant, it totals up to be 1,728 words you have to chant per day. And so this is the thing too, is like you also have to be vegetarian. So at the time, I changed my diet to be vegetarian. I lost a ton of weight to the point where, because I was always a chubby kid, I lost a ton of weight and I didn't know how to eat. I'm not dogging vegan or vegetarian diets, but I didn't know how to eat, bro. I was not eating any protein. I was eating like falafel wraps with like just vegetables. And that was it. Because I didn't know, and drinking like diet A&W root beer. Like I didn't know how to do it. So I lost a ton of weight. And my dad was worried about me. So he was like, he wanted to put me into like drug rehab and all this stuff. But I wasn't like a drug addict. I was just smoking weed and trying different religions and eating vegetarian. But you're also supposed to not consume intoxicants or gamble or have illicit sex, and I was doing all of those. So it's like I wasn't doing a very good job of being a Hare Krishna Hindu. So needless to say, I was getting into this stuff, started meditating, and at that time, I got introduced to yoga in its truest form, right? And I started getting interested into yoga.
A good question I got for you. In the whole thing of, okay, I got to do all of this stuff, I got to stop eating this, I can't do all this. Did you say, I ain't doing all that, I'm gonna put that down? Or did you say, nah, I'm still that, but I'm gonna kind of do it my way and I'm gonna pick and choose? Because sometimes people, like, I know people that, you know, was going through figuring out who they are spiritually, and, you know, and most of the guys in jail, they say, you know, I tried Islam, but man, they pray too much. Then I tried the Hebrew Israelites, and I tried this, and they put down stuff. They pick up and put down stuff. Were you picking up and putting down, or were you picking up, keeping certain pieces, putting other pieces away, and then moving and picking up more stuff? Or was it like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it was more of like, I wanted to have my cake and eat it too.
Okay.
So I was really, really trying as far as religiously to follow the teachings of the religion.
But when you figured out you couldn't.
Right. But if it had to do with something that affected my sinful nature, I'm like, no, but the sin comes first, right? I got to get my sin in, you know? So, so yeah, it was that kind of whole thing of like, I wanted the identity, but I didn't want to give up some of the stuff for the religious aspect of it.
So you was picking and you was making up. I mean, because for real, basically in that world, you could do a Voltron, and you could do what you want to do, really, at the end of the day. So yeah.
Voltron. So yeah, this is when I got introduced to yoga, and so yoga actually means to yoke the body and mind with the gods of Hinduism.
Right.
In its truest form, yoga means to yoke, and that's what you're yoking yourself to.
Right.
And that's what we talked about as people in America, when they do these, you know, yoga sessions or whatever and go to these places, they don't realize what they're doing. They don't know that yoga means to yoke yourself to a Hindu god. Yeah. But yoga ended up, you know, becoming one of the 6 denominations of the school of Hinduism.
Okay.
So it was always...
Wait, hold on. The 6 denominations of Hinduism.
Yes, yoga was one of the actual denominations.
What?
So
explain a denomination. I've never heard of that before. What does that mean?
It's kind of like...
Is it like Baptist and Pentecostal, or...
Well, yeah, it's kind of like how I was explaining, like with Buddhism, you have like... And Mahayana is one, and the other one starts with a V. I just don't want to mispronounce it because it's like Vishnarana, something like that in Hinduism. And then you have Zen Buddhism. So you have different kind of denominations.
So is it
of
like
Hinduism? But you have that of Buddhism, but you have that with Hinduism as well.
So is it like they want you to pick one, or do you adopt? Is it like you're growing through the denominations and you come to a whole, I'm all of them?
Well, you have to understand, with Hinduism, a lot of religions have like a founder. Like, you you know, with Buddhism, you have Buddha. With Mormonism, you have Joseph Smith, right? You have, you know, Charles Taze Russell, with Jehovah's Witnesses. Hinduism doesn't have that. They don't have a
Buddha
founder. No, not of Hinduism.
Krishna, is it?
No, Hinduism is actually, it was founded. There is no foundation date of it. We just know that it originated around the times of Abraham. So it's a very, very old religion.
So who is Krishna or to?
Krishna would be an emanation of one of the three emanations of Brahma.
Okay.
And Brahma to them would be the closest thing to what God is to us.
Okay.
But they have Hinduism has a pantheistic worldview,
Right.
Which is everything is God.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
this laptop is God.
Yeah.
This mic stand is God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, God has different emanations, right? Three different, and Krishna is one of those emanations.
Okay.
And then within that, you also have different emanate. So they have like 3 million gods or something.
Yeah.
The gods to them are not necessarily, and you'll have different Hindus say, but to them, they're like emanations of Brahma, essentially.
Okay. Okay.
And but that's kind of, you see that in a lot of pagan stuff.
Yeah. It's all like that.
But a lot of them, you know, they sacrifice food to these emanations and deities and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, with yoga, like I said, was one of the 6 original denominations of Hinduism.
Yeah.
And before it even came to America, this was, like I said, it was strictly Hindu. And there was a guy who brought it to America named Swami Vivekananda was his name. And he was the first man to actually bring about the interfaith awareness community, what we now know as the New Age. So the same dude
Interfaith
who brought yoga from Hinduism over from India was the founder of the interfaith awareness community, which is where we actually get New Age teaching from.
Okay.
And obviously, if you're not familiar with New Age, it's basically the Burger King of religion.
Right.
It's like you pick and choose different stuff from different Eastern religions, maybe a little bit of Christianity, a little bit of Islam, whatever, and you make your own faith that works for you.
Yeah.
So he was also, I think this is interesting too to understand about yoga, is Swami Vivekananda was also a member of the Theosophical Society, which was created by Madame Blavatsky. Are you familiar with Blavatsky at all? So Blavatsky, she was a soothsayer, right?
Yeah.
She has supposedly had contact with these ascended masters, and she was friends with Aleister Crowley. If you don't know who Aleister Crowley is, he said he was the wickedest man alive, the great B666.
Yeah.
And they would create these places called Vedanta centers where they introduced Hindu into Western society. And they eventually created their own form of modern yoga, which is what we see today in the U.S. And so these yoga postures, they honor gods and goddesses of Hindu. And if you're a Christian and you're seeing this, no born-again Christian should have any business doing yoga.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that from a legalistic standpoint. I'm saying that from like, our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
So like, don't yoke your temple with something that's pagan.
Yep.
Because you're really inviting the demonic into your life at that point. You're giving them an open door to attack you.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, like Aleister Crowley, he was a yogi himself. He he wrote books about yoga. So these are the kind of people that like, you know what I mean? When people say they do yoga, I'm like, oh, so you're a fan of Crowley?
So what?
You know,
so
like,
what does the yoga that was brought here look like versus what we have now? What's the difference?
A lot of it is they'll take some of the poses. And you might see like the sun salutation and stuff like that. Those might be some of the original yoga poses that came. But most
so they just expanded.
Yes, but most of the modern yoga, a lot of it is they'll have like maybe 1 or 2 poses that might have come from Hinduism. and then modifications of different poses. But I think as a person, when you're going into something that's more Hinduism type yoga, you're going to go in there and you're going to feel it, because there's going to be statues of Hindu gods in there. A lot of the ones that are more pure Hindu yoga is the teachers, when you're in the yoga pose, they may come over to you and like adjust your hand or move your back up and move your leg to where it's just right, and then have you hold that position for minutes. And that's the yoking part, is because like when you're doing yoga, like the position matters, because these are positions that are mimicking Hindu gods and certain stories of these Hindu gods.
It's worship.
It is very supernatural, and that's what people don't understand. Is it's like, I'll talk some more about some other things that I got into, such as qigong, which is also very supernatural, and you can actually
I don't know if I ever heard
invite spirits into your body through it. And so there's certain things that you have to do to protect yourself. Just like in witchcraft, there's certain things you have to do to protect
protection
yourself
spells
from demonic spirits entering
while you're doing other stuff.
But that's the same with yoga, but people don't realize what they're doing. And so, like I said, I'm not coming to condemn anybody that's doing it. I'm just coming to sound the warning bell.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it is dangerous.
It's not honoring to your father. It's not honoring to the kingdom. And just like God says, don't worship me. If you think that there's a such thing as Christian yoga, remember that God said, don't worship me how the pagans worship their gods. Don't associate that with me. This is how you worship me. So
amen. So around that time, I graduated from high school. I'm still in the band. I go to college. Okay. I went to Hocking College, which is right next to Athens, OU, Ohio University. So 3 hours away from home now. I'm living in essentially Athens, Ohio, top party school in Ohio, right? If you don't know anything about OU, top party school. So debauchery just everywhere, bro. I mean, and so this is where I had like my first experiences with psychedelic drugs, acid, mushrooms, ecstasy, ketamine. I went for e-commerce and web design was my degree. I wanted to do music, but I needed a backup plan because I knew that, I know I want to do music for the rest of my life, but I have to have some sort of backup plan, right? So like spent a lot of time partying, pretending I was like this righteous guru hippie dude, but it wasn't working. Like my facade was not like I was way more focused on religion and spirituality before I left to go to college than I was when I went to college, because partying took a full time, but I still wanted to act that way. When I was around other people, I wanted to make sure they knew that I was like this spiritual dude. But then as soon as I got back home, it was, porn, partying, whatever. It's like, I was total fake, bro. Like I'm serious. Like I can come to you right now and say I was a fake. I was doing it for love of the world, to be accepted by people and to have people think highly of me. And so I actually, this is at the time where I was in the jam band scene, but I was surrounded by a bunch of Jamaicans at Hocking College because there was this exchange student program. So I would go to these Jamaican parties that they would have at Hocking, and they would stay up until like 6 a.m. and it was just like reggae music all night long. I would party with them. And so I got really, really involved in reggae at the time. I was already
playing up there. You playing
just
guitar?
Jamming, but not with a band. And I had already gotten into reggae. So we would integrate some reggae into the jam band stuff we did. But this really sealed the deal. Like, because I had a love for reggae when I went to college. But being around these Jamaicans, it was like, it transformed me into like full blast. No, I'm not doing anything other than reggae music. Like I locked in with it. It was like something in my spirit was like, this is what you're destined to do. You got to get rid of the jam band stuff like that. Like, no, reggae is what you're destined for. And so totally shifted, right? I always had a love for reggae. And I started a new band called the Ohms, and we started doing reggae and punk music. And that's when I started doing that Olmsted Music Festival. So I did a music festival we put on for like 16 years. And so my band would get other bands together, and we would do this big music festival every year where we would showcase, you know, like 20 different bands. And it was just like, you know how music festivals are. Like, we would just party, dude, like psychedelic drugs, drunk every night. But at the same time, also playing music. So there was like an aspect of it that was good, you know, musically, but at the same time, there was the whole just like debauchery aspect of it too. And this is at the time I started getting into, I met some people there while I was doing absinthe. We were drinking absinthe. I got into witchcraft stuff. They started teaching me about tarot, astral projection, white witchcraft and stuff. And so I was already interested in that because I was into Zen Buddhism and Hinduism, and I was starting to get into like the New Age teachings. At that time, conspiracy theory stuff was huge because the internet was getting really big. YouTube was getting really big. It sent me on like a train into the New Age because I'm like starting to understand that there's this demonic, like when I was introduced to white witchcraft, I'm like, oh, this is the answer.
This is how
this is how I can fight against the darkness is with, because they're using dark magic. So I just need to use white magic. And so I was super convinced at that time that like praying was the same thing as white witchcraft.
See,